friend. You're listening to the Sustainable Bodyworker, the podcast for massage therapists who want to grow thriving, purpose-led businesses without the burnout. Here we talk about nervous system aligned business strategy, pricing that makes sense, client work that doesn't deplete you, and how to build a career that actually supports your life. I'm your host, Gretchen Popp, massage therapist, mentor, educator, and recovering overachiever. Let's get into it. Alrighty, Corey, thank you so much for joining. First and foremost, I would love to kind of give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and to give us a little background on who you are and why I'm so excited to have you on today, because you've got a really great background that I'm excited to share with the community.
You're excited. That'll be all you. But my name is Corey Rivera. I'm the strategy and media coordinator for a nonprofit called HealWell. HealWell operates mostly out of DC, but really our staff is all over the United States. On the surface, we teach massage therapists to work with chronic and seriously ill people. And underneath that, we are trying to make change in the massage therapy profession.
Awesome.
So my job, my strategy and media coordinator title is sort of general. I make podcasts. I write our Substack. I run our online private community. And I do pretty much anything else that we decide fits into my job category.
Jack of all trades. I love it. And well, I really love what, you've put out there with the Substack, and I'd love to get a little bit more nitty gritty into the article that you wrote that really introduced me to you, and speak more about the article you wrote, The Secret Health Crisis of Massage Therapists. And I'd love to know what called you to write this piece, if there was maybe a particular moment, a conversation, or a feeling that told you that this needed to be named publicly.
Yeah, for anybody who hasn't read the article yet, the article is about a CDC statistic that came out that massage therapists ranked fourth highest in the country for females for suicide rates. And that article was brought to our attention by one of our HealWell staff members. She was looking for statistics on suicide rates for veterinarians because she had a family member that was going to go be a vet tech and she was worried about them. And just sort of out of random curiosity, she checked to see if there was any information about massage therapist suicide rates, and this article came up, and she sent it to us on our staff communication. And my first response in the communication was an F-bomb, because I immediately understood the implications of what that statistic would mean for our industry. I didn't know all of them, but obviously that was like a tidal wave of possibility that had just happened. So I grew up in a family that has a lot of mental illness. We don't have a problem talking about it. We don't pretend it's not real. Everyone's really honest about it. So the idea of talking about it wasn't scary, but the idea of doing it wrong was extremely scary. So there was never, ever a thought for me of not putting this information out there. Because if we buried it, someone else was going to find it. And who knows how they would have approached it. I learned that there are rules to reporting on suicide, which is why the title of the article doesn't have suicide in it. That's one of the rules. And it was a good encapsulation of the things that I have been worried about for this profession. And I never had any hard evidence, which I'm sure we'll talk more about, because massage therapists don't have good data about ourselves. We just don't have data about ourselves at all. So there was no way to prove that these things that I see were a big problem, other than that, like, if you talk to massage therapists about these problems, they notice them and they'll nod and like they definitely relate. But having one statistic really underlined the need for change.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and it seems so in line with the work that you guys do at HealWell as well. So it seemed really, this article got shared all over the place, and it seemed like finally someone is speaking publicly about this. And just like you said, saying the thing that we've all kind of on one level or another been resonating with. We can resonate with so many different aspects of what you spoke about in the article. And there's a lot to do with our profession that is, for lack of a better word, exhausting. You particularly
Hmm.
wrote about how massage therapy is marketed as this healing profession, which it is, right? But the unspoken realities of it and experiencing what it is to be in working in this field can be quite different. So, why do you think it's been so hard to talk about the emotional toll, even when many of us do resonate with this?
So in the Heal Well online community, we have a post that we do every couple of weeks called the Word of the Week. And the idea is we pick a word and then the community talks about what it means for them and what it might mean for other people, which might be different from what it means from them. What kind of connotations does it have? What's a literal meaning? How does it sort of like fit into your idea of what you do? Um, and a couple weeks ago, we used the word healer. Um, and the response was not positive, let's say,
Yep.
towards that word. People didn't feel like they were, quote, healers. They felt like that wasn't necessarily the work that they were doing. They felt like the word put a lot of pressure on them to do a thing. It also felt very controlling for the person who was, quote, getting healed. So the word in of itself is burdensome, which is fascinating. And then as far as like the difficulty of talking about it, massage therapists love their job. You have to love this job if you're going to do it because you're not going to make a bajillion dollars. And you're going to work weird hours and you're going to have no fingernails and you're going to have weird body things of your own to deal with. And you wouldn't do it if you didn't love it. And you wouldn't do it if you didn't love your clients. And to have that kind of feeling about your job and to not get compensated for it, you have to hold on to something. And the thing that we cling to is that love. But if you admit that this job is also very difficult and maybe is taking its toll on you and maybe is not good for you, then you have lost the one thing that you were clinging to that lets you continue doing this work.
That's a really interesting perspective because it's kind of like I see a parallel. I'm a mother, and I see a parallel in that same thing that there's not really necessarily this ability to admit that that's a really hard job. And sometimes I don't love it. And so same thing goes with massage therapy that like sometimes it can be really, really hard. It can take a huge toll on our body. And you're so right. Like we would not do it if there wasn't a passion for it. When you were saying those things, I personally kind of thought about how I feel like I've compromised my social life because I have no room for social interaction outside of the treatment room. I've kind of not just filled my cup, but I've also poured out of my own cup so much socially that then going out with friends or interacting with people in general is just not something that I can do anymore. And that's part of the reason why I have gone so few days hands on because I really do pour so much from that. So I'm really curious what you think about that and that kind of that parallel of other experiences in life that we have with you know the balance of loving something but also having the challenge of admitting that sometimes it's really freaking hard and that's not socially acceptable in a sense to admit that.
Yeah, I think your comparison with motherhood is a good one because having kids is really hard. And maybe if you thought too hard about it, you'd make a different choice or you'd make the same choice, but then would like to talk about how hard it is. Um, and with massage therapy, one of the things I think about a lot is that everything has a price.
Mm.
And you don't always know what the price is when you start. And in order to continue, you need to understand that price and understand if you're willing to accept it and to work with it, um, and to understand it and to figure out how you're going to deal with it. And I think with massage therapy, none of us were informed of the price. We were told that it's a great job, which it can be. We were told that you're going to make a difference, which we do. We were not necessarily told about the financial instability. We weren't necessarily told. I think we were warned all fairly about the physical possibility of like consequences, and everybody sort of, because that consequence is on the table, you don't ask further questions. We aren't warned about the emotional toll, not really, and we're certainly not prepared to deal with it. So there's a gap between what you are sold when you go to school for this job and what the reality is. And once you're sold that, now you have a problem of talking about it because if no one talks about it, then it kind of doesn't exist. It's a very tree falls in the woods problem. And once you start talking about it, like we did with this article, all this stuff starts coming out of people being like, this is what I have experienced for the last 15 years of my life. Or I can't believe no one has talked about this before. Or I thought I was the only one. And that's why that's why I write, because you were not the only one. And sometimes it just takes like one little sentence for you to be like, I'm not by myself in this.
Yeah, that's so huge. Having that mirrored, shared experience, even just a glimmer of knowing that someone else is in a similar boat, kind of takes the weight off a little bit. You mentioned that we're not sold the reality of what this is so much. And it makes me think about, so I went to it was considered the Harvard of massage schools at the time. It was a full 1,000-hour program. They had an AOS program beyond that. I felt like I was getting the creme de la creme of an education, but even still, was not given the self-care tools and the really even the business to know how to really thrive in this profession with that amount of time. And, I'm thinking about all of these programs that, due to many situations with government funding and all of that bureaucratic stuff, having to lessen the hours of their programs more and more and more. And seeing all of these new massage therapists come out of, 500-hour programs and how limited they must be in the support if I didn't feel like I had the support with 1,000 hours plus and an incredible education from, what I experienced. It really does go to show, I think, that I'm noticing a lot with the massage school owners that I've spoken with and the red tape that they've needed to walk through, that there's the balance of the people who run massage schools from the place of a passion for teaching massage and having a really
Hmm.
cool mission to share, but then also running the business side of it. And how many of us would have jumped into this profession knowing that information? I mean, hindsight is always 2020. However, how many of us would have jumped into that with that knowledge? But then also, there's just so much to be said for like wanting to advocate for putting more content in the curriculum to allow us to flourish, because I do think it's totally possible. I do believe that there is a way that this statistic that you fell upon it's not inevitable. We can shift that with the right levels of support, with community, and we'll talk more about that too. And there's so many dynamics at play, right? You particularly named in the article, there's isolation, financial strain, there's the mismatch between what's expected and what's sustainable in this career. And I'm curious for you, from your perspective and what you've learned, which of these feels most urgent to address first?
I do want to say, as far as the schools go, that I know all of the people who teach massage therapy, again, wouldn't be doing it if they didn't love it. And they really believe in what they're doing. They're just not given enough tools or enough time to do it in a way that provides their students with what they need. And they honestly don't have the resources to provide themselves with what they need either. So they're very much in the same boat as people who are practicing.
Yeah.
Also, massage therapists have not done a good job of studying ourselves or understanding things about our profession. We've been very focused on being a profession without understanding sort of the implications of that. And part of what we haven't been able to do, because as a profession we haven't had the resources, is to study the things that were in that article. So the things that you listed are from the CDC article itself, are risk factors that are related to occupational suicide hazard. And there's a ton of articles and there's a body of knowledge about these things, and I have never, ever, ever seen them apply to massage therapists. We talk about it with nursing, PTs talk about it, obviously the vets talk about it, um, managers talk about it, people who work in food service talk about it. Like everybody talks about it in relation to their own profession, and we don't have anybody that is exploring those things, which is part of my job. But it's a very large job, because it's a very large body of knowledge. So even if those teachers had the time and had the hours, they wouldn't have the knowledge to share with their students about how it affects massage therapy specifically and what to do about it because we just haven't looked at it because we haven't had the time or the people to do it. Um,
Yeah.
as far as the things that I think are most important, so isolation, I think, is the biggest factor right now as far as things that can be addressed and things that are most important. Um, the other really big one is the financial strain, but that's going to take conversation with essentially every stakeholder in the massage therapy profession, and there are a lot of them. When HealWell looks at how many audiences we have, I have marked out about 12, from students to educators to employers to associations. There's about 12. That includes our donors, and for HealWell, it includes patients because of the hands-on hospital-based work that our therapists do. So getting all of those people to understand the problem and then getting all those people to agree on a solution and then getting all those people to actually do something about it is going to be a long road. And all of those things go into the financial picture. So as far as things that we can do right now, I think the isolation is the biggest one. Massage therapists, we work alone, man.
Yeah.
Like we go to school and maybe your class had 2 people, maybe it had 20 people, but it probably wasn't much more than that, even if you were in a large school. You work with those people, you work with those teachers, you graduate, and even if you work for a franchise that has multiple therapists, you work in a room by yourself with your clients. You don't work with other people, you kind of work around them. And some of the advice given to people who run franchises and spas is to stagger your massage therapist so there's always somebody working, which means you don't take breaks together either.
Yeah.
And anybody who's done this job knows that a break is sort of a vague term that means that I need to file my fingernails and I need to do my notes and I maybe might stuff some food in my mouth. And man, it'd be really nice if I got to go to the bathroom and I need to turn over my room. So, like, there's not a lot of time for deep conversation in break rooms, even if you have that kind of arrangement. And if you don't, maybe you just hung up your shingle on your own and you work by yourself completely. And that's sort of a strange predicament to be in for us. So community does not come easily to massage therapists. It's not natural. We have to really, really work for it. You can't wait for people to come to you. You have to go find them. Getting massage therapists organized is like herding cats, crazy cats that have just been bathed. Like it's really hard to pin anybody down to do anything. And like you said, when you do pin people down, they're exhausted from what they were just doing. So all of the effort and like soul that you put into your job means that like you don't really want to go hang out after work. You want to go home and you want to have dinner with your family and maybe you want to read a book or go for a run or something else. So making that time is really hard. And then on top of that, when we do make the time, it's usually for a trade and there's nothing wrong with trades and you should totally do it, but it is not the same experience because in a trade, one person is doing a treatment and one person is receiving a treatment, and you need to have an interaction where you are on level ground at all times. So not only does the trade not really count for this, but you have a whole life to get to as well. And it takes effort. And, you know, how many massage therapists are around you? Things are generally better in person. But if you have to do Zoom, then that's what you have to do. But now you're on a Zoom call. Like, so there's just a lot of things in the way of us having community with each other on a consistent basis.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I think part of the reason why I have adored doing this podcast is because it is connecting me with more people, that I never would have connected with otherwise. But I joke that, Kelsey, our producer and occasional co-host, she's one of my best friends. And it's a running joke that, we can have, like, we have a really hard time getting together as friends, but when it comes to business and putting this together, we will always carve out the time. And it's like, great, I've got a built-in friendship here. And I'm personally absolutely, I mean, yes, it's in Zoom. if I could meet up with everyone around the world, that would be fantastic. Alas, this is the technology that we have and the accessibility that we
Yep.
have. But I am loving connecting with people, and this is filling my cup so much. And it's kind of like, at least for me, in my experience, building my community into the work that I'm doing allows me that kind of segue and limiting the isolation that I feel.
Yeah, if you can have a different, you need a solid reason to do something. So I'm going to go have coffee with this other massage therapist because I listened to this podcast and someone told me I needed to do that is not a good reason. And you're not going to do it. You're going to find a way out of it. Um, and that's understandable and okay. So there needs to be a reason that you believe in to have that kind of community, or it needs to be so convenient that there's no reason for you to get out of it.
Yeah.
And that really depends on you and your friends.
Yeah. Well, I mean, regardless of being a massage therapist or not, we are just as a society getting more and more isolated, not as much community living, I mean, at least our generation is getting a lot more rural because we're all doing the homesteading thing, which I've recently experienced is like, well, now I don't have my little condo community. That's a new thing that I did not anticipate. Those built-in relationships that you see day in, day out just aren't there anymore. And so now I'm like contacting my friends, like, come live on my land. Let's rebuild this community. And there's a resurgence of wanting to develop community, and that built in, these people are sharing land with me, and we're seeing each other all the time because we are already a part of something, but not necessarily always having to put so much energy out to try and maintain these relationships. So much to be said. I'm curious what just from your perspective, I'm sure there's so many different opinions and viewpoints to be had here, but in your view, what does it take to feel whole and well in this work? Not just physically, but just as a human being in general.
I don't have a good answer for that because I couldn't
Mm.
figure it out, so I stopped doing work at the table. Um, I was pretty much done or wanted to be done seeing clients right before COVID hit. And then COVID hit, and I'm one of the weird people that was like, I get to stay home. I'm
That
so
was me
happy I get
too.
to stay home. Yeah, so I have found a few people that were like, no, it was helpful. And that obviously is not the case for everybody, not even remotely. And then things opened up again and I went back to work, but I went back to work with an aim of like, I need to stop doing this part of this job. Um, so having support is a big part. I think that having support, so that isolation piece, one of the problems with that, so as massage therapists, we talk about boundaries a lot,
Mm.
like a lot, right? And how everybody needs good boundaries. You need to have strong boundaries and like make sure you have your boundaries and make sure that you've established boundaries. And it seems like we don't get very far despite how much we talk about it. And I think the reason that it's such a struggle is that without that support and particularly that professional support, we start leaning on our clients
Mm.
because that's who we see. And
Yeah.
so those boundaries get really wibbly because you're supporting a person and they like you a lot. Like how many of us have gotten marriage proposals on a regular basis,
Yes.
right? Weekly. And I love that every client who does it is like, I'm sure people like, no one has ever said this to you. And you're like, the last person actually said this to me. And the next person might as well. And I understand. And that's very sweet. And I get the sentiment, but like, it happens a lot. So that kind of like mutual support, and we do like get things out of this job. There is personal satisfaction in it, and that's great. But without having other people to talk to, you talk to your clients.
Yeah.
It's who you see all of the time. So I don't know about whole and well, but like spreading out your burden to people who can handle it is really important. Um,
Talk more
also,
about
like,
that. What do you mean by that?
so being a human is burdensome. Like, just existing is hard. And existing right now is particularly difficult.
Yeah.
So, you shouldn't be supporting just yourself all the time. Everything gets better when we spread it out. It's like walking on ice, right? If you stand in one place, the ice might break. But if we all spread out, um, then it's not quite so difficult. You could also, I suppose, think of it like Smurfs. Um, the more Smurfs you have, the easier the work is.
I love that.
Um, so when you have wibbly boundaries with your clients, part of that is you trying to find more Smurfs. And that's not a good idea. So the feeling whole and well means that you're going to need support and Smurfs. And that's just part of being a person. Like, it's not a bad thing. You're not actually a burden. It is burdensome to be you. Um,
We
but
need
being
each
you is so
other.
important, and we need each other, and we
Yeah.
need you here. And but we all need each other to survive. That's that like community building thing, which has become so incredibly difficult. And like with the rise of social media stuff, we had this like surrogate connection thing that started to happen, and we thought that it was the same, or we thought it was better, and it turns out it's not better or the same. In fact, it kind of sucks.
It's negative.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so now we're trying to like figure out how to be a community again, all of
Yeah.
us.
I'm excited we're back on that upswing. And, I want to just kind of speak to how you started to answer this question because you said you don't know how to answer that necessarily because you're not hands-on anymore. But I think that you actually answered this beautifully for yourself because what was allowing you to feel full in this work, it sounds like, is more of this advocacy and support role, which is, as we've been talking about, hugely important, and not many people are taking that on, and maybe more people will. I mean, one of my missions is to allow more and more massage therapists to know that there are ways of still being a massage therapist if you love the hands-on work, but you don't have to do it 30, 40 hours a week. You don't even have to do it 20 hours a week. We do have other options either with this day and age in technology or building in other aspects of our work to still be able to provide the hands-on, but not do it from a place of depletion. And so I love that you have found, I mean, you're still within the massage therapy profession. You're just not hands-on, right? And you are providing so much love and support and structure and helping develop this community. And that's beautiful. That's a beautiful answer for you. So I think that that gives a really good example for anyone out there who might feel exactly as you did around COVID when, when you felt like I actually need to figure out a way to get hands off now. Because that, I think some people, again, the same thing with acknowledging that it's a challenging profession, that there's not necessarily the space to share that this is hard. There's also not as much space to share that maybe I want to move hands off. And anyone who's listening, like that's perfectly okay. And there are avenues to go through to allow that to happen. And Corey, you're a shining example of some really beautiful work that one can do with that transition.
Hey friend, real quick, I'm interrupting this episode to share something that's made a huge difference in my health and my ability to actually rest, which is kind of the foundation for everything we talk about here. Now, you've heard my story, and you probably know that I used to be a chronic insomniac. Like, my eyes were super tired, brain totally wired, body aching all the time, just laying there for hours wide awake, even though I was completely exhausted. And even when I did fall asleep, I'd wake up with that classic cortisol spike at 3 a.m. and couldn't fall back to sleep again. I honestly just thought that was how my body worked. But everything changed when I started using Swanwick blue light blocking glasses. I was in a program that emphasized 3 pillars of health, and sleep was one of those non-negotiables. And once I understood what blue light was doing to my nervous system and circadian rhythm, it made so much sense. So here's the science real quick. Blue light, especially from screens and overhead lighting, suppresses melatonin production. And it doesn't take much. Even small amounts of exposure after sunset can delay the release of melatonin by hours, making it so much harder to fall asleep and stay asleep. But that's just the beginning. That same disruption also affects your cortisol rhythm, your ability to regulate inflammation, your blood sugar, your digestion, and even your tissue repair. Now, you're a body worker, so you know sleep is when the real healing happens for you and your clients. So now I wear my Swanwick glasses every night starting at around 5 p.m., especially if I'm leading a Zoom call or working late, and the difference is wild. I fall asleep within 30 minutes of starting to read in bed, I sleep so much deeper, and I wake up with a lot less pain. And most importantly, I feel like me again. And just to take it a step further, I even swapped my bathroom light bulbs to their amber-toned bulbs so that my evening routine doesn't confuse my body into thinking it's midday. This is one of the easiest, most effective upgrades I've made to my nervous system regulation and overall healing. It's super low effort, high reward. Honestly, it kind of feels like cheating. So if you're someone who struggles with winding down or you find yourself wired at night even though you're bone tired, give these a try. There's a link in the show notes to grab your own pair. Okay, back to the episode.
I want to say that I got extremely lucky finding Healwell, who I found during the COVID shutdown, unfortunately. But one of my goals professionally, which will probably be the rest of my life, is trying to figure out how we can find pathways for massage therapists who either need to stop doing table work because it's not suited for them, or they've retired, or they just have interests that are stronger that are elsewhere in the profession. And I don't know what those solutions are or what those pathways are, but when people leave this profession, they leave completely. They just exit and they go somewhere else and they stop being massage therapists. And that means we have a massive amount of brain drain that's happening. I can't even fathom how much knowledge our profession has lost from just people leaving. And they don't need to leave, but we don't have good pathways for them to stay either.
Yeah.
For anybody who's listening that is interested in other kinds of work, we desperately need people for policy work. So we need people to talk to politicians about what it is that we do, because, I mean, if you think your clients have no idea, the people making the rules really have no idea.
Yeah.
So policy is a big one. Pedagogy is a big one. The science of education. We have almost no academic literature on massage therapy pedagogy. So we have no way to track what people are doing or how they're doing it, or if it's working or if it's a bad idea, or we have nothing. So we hugely need people in teaching spaces to look at teaching and not just look at students. And then research. Research is the third, like, really big one that we need. And that's rough because all of these things technically probably take college degrees. So I have a bachelor's. Everybody at Healwell has either a master's or a bachelor's. We don't have any PhDs. We still do research, but it just means you need to find PhD friends to do that part for you and to help you write grants and things. So another reason for community, go make friends so you can do research. But we don't have good pathways to get massage therapists who would be suited for programs like that into programs like that. And we have very few massage therapy researchers who were massage therapists that understand that. So we have Dr. Nikki Monk, who is at the University of Indiana. We have Dr. Ambler Kennedy, who is in South Carolina at a medical school. We have some really great people, but finding an educational pathway to get to where you want is going to be a little messy. And that might be a great thing because you'll learn a lot of things along the way. But if those things interest you, don't give up on them. Come find people who also want to do them. And there's probably more than you think.
Yeah. I mean, if you feel a certain way about something, there's guaranteed to be many others that do. It's just not necessarily the conversations that are happening in the massage communities right now. And I want to talk a little bit more about Healwell and particularly the processing session for massage therapists. There seems to be a lot that came up, and I'm curious what stood out to you from that experience. Any moments that felt like turning points or important truths emerging from that processing session?
Yeah, so we set up the processing session because we felt people would need a space to talk about it that was safe. We didn't have any great plans for what to do with it. We just wanted to give people some room. We ended up asking a friend of Healwell, Jen Brandel, who is a social worker who's done some online classes for us in communication stuff mostly. So Jen came in and she brought a piece that I hadn't thought about or hadn't stumbled upon, I guess. It's really more what it was, that I am now incorporating into the work that I do on this topic, which is trauma exposure. So trauma exposure is what happens when you work with people who are experiencing trauma, whether or not you're experiencing it yourself. It's called a lot of things. Secondary trauma, compassion fatigue comes up a lot.
Yeah.
They're all of the same idea of this like residual that happens. And it's a lot. So Jen came in. She brought a book with her, which is called Trauma Stewardship, which I highly, highly recommend. You can get it for $3 used on Amazon. Please buy this book. You can get it on audio. Listening is reading, totally counts. But the book has little comics in it, which I highly recommend. So they break it up. It's really easy to read. It's very friendly. But it includes the 16 signs of trauma exposure. And Jen read these 16 out and sort of described what they meant, probably for massage therapists specifically. And people in the Zoom chat raised their hand when they felt like it applied to them. And so many people raised their hands so many times during this thing. So the first one, and the one that always seems to get people, is a sense that one can never do enough. And if you're listening to this and you just went, ugh, then you really need to get this book. Because it has ways to help as well. But it also describes this thing that you are probably experiencing that nobody in massage therapy is talking about. And the trauma like started with COVID and has not ended and is escalating. And you as a massage therapist probably need training, almost certainly need training in trauma-informed care, but you also need information in trauma within yourself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's name the elephant in the room. I have noticed just from my own personal experience, and I'm curious as to your thoughts on this, that I believe a lot of us get into this profession because we've had that experience ourselves and we are attuned to being able to hold space, or perhaps maybe even want to have, or we have some subconscious desire to process our own trauma through the facilitation of processing someone else's.
So there's a concept that we are exploring, and by we, I mean sort of Healwell and also other people outside of Healwell, called the wounded healer, which is
Yeah.
a Carl Jung idea. But we are not alone in this. Like everybody that goes into healthcare is like wounded in some way, and that's why we did it. And
Yeah.
among nursing, so we have some friends that are nurse educators. It's just well known. Like you just go into it and people are like, what was your trauma? That's probably why you're in GI. Like, what was your trauma? That's probably why you're in the ER. That's probably why you chose to do not only the work that you do, but the specific subset of the work that you do. And it's just talked about. It's totally normal. I don't know anybody that went through massage education that had that conversation. I certainly did not. And I also went to what was considered a very good school. So we're pretending something that nobody else in healthcare is pretending, which
Interesting.
is that we're just fine. And you're not fine. Like, honestly, you chose massage therapy. So when I ask people why they went into massage therapy, another thing that we need research on, by the way, they say, I want to help people. And that's great. But what I tell people is you could have slung tater tots at the elementary school down the road for lunchtime and volunteered and helped people. Or you could teach adults how to read, or you could offer rides to people who need them. There's a million ways that you could help, and you chose to touch naked strangers. And that's weird. Like, it's a weird choice that we have all made. So why did you choose that one instead of the tater tots?
You know, it's interesting. I remember my very first day of massage school, and everyone's going around in the circle answering the question of why they wanted to go into massage. And I felt incredibly embarrassed because everyone is telling these really profound stories of having been injured themselves or having this, you know, godlike experience with another massage therapist or whatever. It's incredible stories. And we got around to me, and I did not know. And I felt like an imposter. I really did. I mean, I'm good at what I do. I love my job. I love the work that I give. I wish I could give myself a massage, frankly. But I did not know why I was there. And I was privileged to have at least a little dose of working through some trauma. That was a very impactful week in school. And mind you, it was only a little bit, like just a week. It was a blip in my career, or, you know, educational career. But I remember that was a really intense week for me, diving into why I wanted to do that, because I'm not even a touchy-feely person in general, like unless like except for people that I'm intimate with. I'm not a touchy-feely person, so why would I be touchy-feely with strangers? It's very interesting. So I think that that's a really interesting topic. I would love to, in whatever way I could, help facilitate the research around that too, because it is really fascinating. At least for me, I'm like, why the heck did I end up here? I don't know, but I do a good job.
I have theories, but like I don't have any evidence for any of them other than the number of people that I talk to and the things that they say. And part of that, I think, is a neurodiversity thing. I think massage therapy neurodiversity rates are off the charts.
Yeah.
We are way higher than the general population. I think there's things about this job that attracts neurodiverse people to it. And that's awesome and important and great and wonderful, and also means that we have a flighty reputation because we are neurodiverse and traditional systems don't work for us. And so people think, like employers think that we're just difficult. And I mean, I guess, but the reason we are difficult is because things have not been accommodating, not because we're trying to make things hard for people.
That's really interesting. You just connected those two dots in my brain, because yeah, the massage therapists are flaky dialogue has been going on for a long time, ever since. I mean, I managed a high franchise, the therapist side of a high volume franchise, and man, the herding cats analogy and all of that, like we slung that around like crazy. And only recently are people talking about neurodiversity, I'd say probably in the last 5 years, has it become really open conversation that I've been seeing. And you just connected those two dots for me. That is fascinating. And I think you're absolutely right. The accommodation and the ability to connect with. I mean, this is coming from my experience as an employer, being able to. I did personality testing for my employees, to make sure that they were a fit, but also to make sure that I was meeting them where they're at, so that I could provide the training in a way that helps them thrive and communicate with them in a way that didn't make them feel shut down and all of that. And there's really good personality tests that allow you to be able to attune to people, so to speak. And it's really interesting that you bring up the neurodiversity aspect of it as something that's what brings us into the profession, but in a way, I think also stigmatizes us in this profession, especially when working as an employee.
Yeah. And like, if those rates really are that high, and I really do think they are, and again, we need research, what does that mean for our education as well? Like how we are providing education or what we're doing about it. And I've talked to some people at FSMTB, and they say that it has implications for regulation as well. I don't understand completely what they are, but like when I say that thing about neurodiversity, people's eyes like light up, and like you can just see little connections happening inside of their brain. And it's always related to what it is that they do in the profession and how it would affect what they do in this profession. And it's all of it, right? So I think we want to help people, and I think people would like to go through traditional like medicine type programs and nursing, but those programs are not accommodating. I was in medical school for a hot second. They are not accommodating. Let me tell you, I was there.
Oh yeah.
And if you can't do that, then like massage therapy is good, and you can control. There's like more flexible hours and there's more flexible time, and it's one person at a time, which seems to appeal to a lot of neurodiverse people, that it's not like a whole hospital full. I've heard people say that having one person at a time and like the entire setting of like dim lighting and quiet music helps like them regulate what they're trying to do, so they can self-regulate their nervous system better than in a like frantic sort of place. There's just so many reasons I think that we attract neurodiverse people, and I think that's awesome, and I think we haven't addressed it. So
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too what you talk about, regulating our own nervous systems. I think the act of attuning to someone else's nervous system is a really healing thing for both people involved in that interchange. Yeah.
Yes, agreed.
Fascinating. Okay, so we could go down the neurodivergent tangent all day long, because that's a fascinating conversation. But I'm particularly curious from your perspective, and I like to ask pretty much everyone on this podcast their perspective on this. For someone who might be questioning whether or not they can keep doing this work, and especially from the perspective of someone who stepped away from the table entirely, what might you say to them, perhaps maybe not as advice, but maybe just like as a companion who's also wrestled with the hard parts of this work?
Be honest with yourself. we're all pretty good at pretending everything is okay until we can't anymore. Honesty means a lot of things, and it means confronting things that you wish were not true. Uh, I'll give you something that's simple, which is bedtime.
Hmm.
So, I have bipolar disorder, and that means that I am swayed by external cues a lot. So my internal biological cues are not terribly strong. They they get affected real fast by a lot of things, and one of the things they get affected by is the sun.
Hmm.
So that means in the summer, when the sun sets at 10 o'clock, I am very awake a lot of the time.
Yep.
And when the sun sets at 4 o'clock in the winter, I am very asleep a lot of the time, or I need to be. So for me, like bedtime in the winter is like hard stop at 8 p.m., might be 7:30 depending on the day. And then I wake up really early and I stopped feeling guilty once I made the decision about leaving parties early or just not scheduling things or telling people no. Um, with bipolar disorder, the consequences are very high because having a messed up sleep schedule is the fastest way to get yourself to an episode.
Yeah.
So my consequences were extremely immediate, and other people can sort of like fiddle with that. But then they fiddle so much that they are causing them self-harm. So find out what it is that you truly need and don't be ashamed of it and don't make excuses for it. Just listen to it and find a way to give yourself that thing. And if someone else calls you a party pooper, that's just too bad. And tell them that their sleep deprivation is making them sad. So
Yeah, their sleep deprivation is making them mean. Stop calling
that's
me
right.
names.
That's right. It is.
I love to recommend, it just makes me think of the book that I recommend so frequently, Self-Compassion by Kristen Neff is such a good one for anyone who is making change in their life when they know they want to do better for themselves, but it is really hard. The societal expectations, and even not like in, your scenario with the sun's expectations, when really you're like, no, I should be going to sleep. I'm personally so affected by the light as well. I resonate so much with what you said that the full moon will keep me awake all night. And so get those blackout curtains, do the
Yep.
light
I
blocking
wear a sleep
glasses.
mask. Yep.
Yep, do all the things. And it really is advocating for yourself, recognizing that, you are your best advocate. And, you mentioned previously spreading out over the ice, being able to lean on multiple areas of your life. I loved that. So much. But I like to think of what I'm envisioning now is kind of like the spokes on a wheel, where if we do have all of those individual spokes that we can lean on and spread out and have that resourced nature, we are still the center spoke. So putting ourselves first so that center spoke has the ability to receive the support from all other areas as well. It's like that nice, delicate balance of when you can support yourself fully and then also be able to receive the support and connect with other people, especially if you're still in the process of developing that community and figuring out where your community is. Putting yourself first is so important, and acknowledging, just like you said, acknowledging what that thing is for you. Could be sleep, could be being outside, could be, whatever, exercise, any number of things. Really committing to that. What have you seen practitioners do, whether it's big or small, that has helped them shift from surviving the job to reconnecting with themselves or their lives again?
A lot of boundary setting that's often reluctant. So when people come into the Heal Well community, we're very supportive there, but saying things out loud is really scary. So we have a little section that's called wins and gains. And sometimes people will post in there like a thing that they have decided to do for themselves. So someone will talk about, I made a decision like not to work that fifth day. I'm only going to do four. Or I'm going to take a real vacation and I won't be around for this. Or I'm going to not take evening appointments anymore. I've shifted my schedule. And it is always like said with this like tentative bravery behind it because they are waiting for the social media response, which is, well, I added more hours to my work week, or man, you're so lucky. I wish that I could do that, but I absolutely cannot. which is not how the community works. We just cheer for you. And with that, like, tentative bravery is this, like, they say it like it's their next line in a play, but they're not confident about it. They just know that's what they're supposed to be saying. But once you say it out loud and people reward you for it, right? That's how reinforcement works. So they don't necessarily believe it yet, but then they get all of the support of people being like, no, that's a great idea. And I'm so glad you're doing that. And way to go and be strong. And I know that must have been hard. So reluctant boundaries, but like, be brave.
I love that. That's such a good analogy for anything good for ourselves that we want to do. It's always kind of with a wobbly first step, but and
Mhm.
having people cheer you on is so, so important. I love that. Where, like, tell me a little bit more, paint a picture for anyone who either is not in the Heal Well community or wants to learn more about it. Paint a picture of everything that's kind of involved with that.
Yeah, so we are not on Facebook. I'm going to say that three more times. We're not on Facebook. We're not on Facebook. We are not on Facebook. Um, that place hates everyone.
Yeah.
Like, not necessarily the people on it, but the place itself. Um, I just wrote a thing for our Substack about why we will not respond to your comments on Facebook. For the Substack,
Mm,
you have to go to Substack. So just being on that platform makes you angry because
yeah.
that's how they want you. It is designed to do that. Our community is designed for you to be comfortable and to do what you need to do and to learn the things you would like to learn and have the conversations you would like to have and then leave without any guilt. So it is set up kind of like Facebook. There are different spaces. We have a space for massage talk and we have a space for non-massage talk. And those lines are pretty blurry. And I
Mhm.
shift things all the time. But in general, we talk about books. We talk about like advocacy things have come up a lot. There are people working on policy stuff right now. Somebody put up a post that said, I just want to talk about how bad I feel about my prices. And there was a whole conversation about that. And everyone was like, no, yeah, heard. Like, I got you. And one of our people who is also involved in public health was like, I would like to point out that this is also a public health issue. This is a systems problem. It is not just you. It's not your problem. It is the system that we are working in. And we don't have a lot of control over parts of it. We do have live events, so we do online events. There's been a lot of interest in manual lymphatic drainage lately. So I just try and steer towards what people are interested in, and that's been super, super chatty. On August, I think 14th. So we skipped July because everybody goes on vacation, as they should. So on August 14th, we're doing an open conversation on neurolymphatics, which I know absolutely nothing about, but you should look it up because apparently it's pretty cool. We do article discussions. So if someone has an article they would like to talk about, they bring it to me and we set up a time that works for them. And at least I'll be there, but usually more people will join. We're having a discussion on the Baylor article in a week. I know I said we skipped July, but I made an exception. So there's an article that came out from Baylor University by a guy named Jeff Levin, I think. Uh, Healwell has a persistent annoyance with the amount of massage therapy articles that don't involve a massage therapist.
Yeah.
So there's usually a lot of griping about that. And the Baylor article, which is pretty good, is one of them. And you can always tell, right? Because you read things and you're like, you didn't speak to any massage therapists about this, did you?
Yeah.
But good try. Thanks for doing the work. So live events. Sometimes we have guest speakers. Sometimes we just hang out. That happens too, although less and less. I want people to be there because they want to be there, not because they feel obligated to be there. So it needs to fit in with what you're looking for. You get a discount for online education if you're a community member. And we're working on a mentorship class that isn't quite off the ground yet. So it's personal mentorship with a woman named Sue Bibick, who ran the Kalamazoo Massage School, Kalamazoo, Michigan Massage School for 36 years. She's 75 now. She has purple hair. She goes scuba diving. She's one of those. But she calls herself the massage crone. And she feels like her work now is in helping massage therapists. And mentoring is such a personal thing that it's not quite a one-on-one, but the class is 4 to 8 people. And it is built around the people who are in it and what it is that they need. So you have to be a community member to participate in that class. It's a cool place. It's a fun place. It's a sad place sometimes, but we get to be sad together. And people are doing some really great work. So you also get to hear about the job that isn't yours, which is cool. Like we have a specific group for hospital-based massage therapy people, of which there are quite a few, and everybody's hospital job is completely different from everybody else's. And then there's people who do, honestly, the work that you do, there's someone there who does it. I promise. Like, there's someone there for you to talk to. If you think you do this like crazy niche thing, maybe there's 5 people for you to talk to, but you need to like spread it out. A lot of oncology people, a lot of everything. We don't poo-poo the relaxation stuff, so we're all about relaxation massage. We think it's amazing. Come on in. We love you for the work you do. That's sort of how the community is, yeah. And you can come and go. It's got an app. You can turn off your notifications. All kinds of choices.
I love that. And it seems like it's just a really authentic, well-meaning community too. For so many years, there's been, massage mentorships or business trainings or coaching programs that, in my opinion, are kind of poachy and take advantage of people and put a lot of extra pressure on people and don't necessarily nurture the person, the human on that's receiving it. And it's more about, business, push, get more and more and more. Or at least that's what I was being exposed to at that time. Maybe I just, hadn't found the right people earlier on in my career. And I've noticed that, maybe this is the shift, like you had mentioned, our shift back from social media separating us and now us intentionally trying to recreate community again, recognizing what it's doing to our souls. And so maybe it is the upswing that there's these resurgence of these communities that are much more well-meaning. And I just want to, thank you and everyone at Heal Well for what it is that you guys do, because it really does have an energy of authenticity and space holding that I do believe is rare, and hopefully it inspires more and more people to find the community that they need, or to maybe even, start their own, or be able to just feel seen, at the very core of it. So if anyone wants to learn more and find the community or hear more from you, Corey, where can people find you?
So our podcast is called The Rub. Episodes are about 20 minutes. It is a scripted research podcast, which means they don't come out that often because they're a lot of work. You can find us on Substack. We're called More Than Hands because you are more than hands. You can find us at the community. That's at community.healwell.org. You won't find me on Facebook, although we are there to tell you what kind of services we have. We have an Instagram. I don't do anything with it, so I don't know what's there. It's probably similar to Facebook, though. I just tell people what events are happening in the community, and they put them out on social media.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Corey. I know that people are going to get so much out of this episode, and I'm really, really grateful for your time spent today.
Thank you. This was fun.
Thanks for listening to the Sustainable Bodyworker. If something resonated for you today, grab your free breakthrough session, which includes a custom hypnotherapy track to help you unlock the next level. Grab it now with the link in the show notes. And to hear more, hit subscribe. We'll see you next time.